Hi, my name is Laura Egan O'Brien and I'm the Marketing Manager for the College of Engineering and Architecture here in UCD. I'd like to sincerely welcome you to the UCD Open Day today, and I hope you find it useful and it helps you on your journey to discover what you'd like to study at university. For our landscape architecture talk today, we have UCD lecturer and head of subject for landscape architecture, Dr. Karen Foley. She's going to give you an overview of our undergraduate landscape architecture course, what subjects it covers, what sets it apart from our architecture course, and why it's important for the future of the built environment. So I'm going to hand you over now to Dr. Karen Foley.
Hello, you're very welcome to this talk. My name is Karen Foley and I'm going to talk to you about landscape architecture at UCD. Landscape architecture is one of the degrees within the School of Architecture, Planning and Environmental Policy, where undergraduate students from all those disciplines work together at the Richview end of the campus. Now, why might you consider landscape architecture? Well, if you're interested in the fact that our surroundings have an impact on us, make us feel good or make us feel stressed, but also the fact that we have an impact on our surroundings, maybe a subject like landscape architecture might be useful or might be something that you might want to consider. This is what landscape architecture is. It's an activity involved in shaping and managing the land. And really it involves the anywhere and everywhere outdoors. It's not just talking about the beautiful landscapes we want to protect, it's talking about the landscapes that we live in. So as well as being an activity, it's also a profession. It's based on international and national policies and regulations, and our landscape architecture graduates can work internationally. Now, why might you consider landscape architecture? I suppose really, if you care about the planet, if you want to make a change, landscape architecture is very closely involved with trying to adapt to the challenges of climate change, trying to adapt to global population growth and issues such as food security, really dealing with how we use the land on the planet. These are some of the grand challenges that we face. So it's a design profession that attempts to address some of these grand challenges. So really another reason to consider landscape architecture, we now live in an urbanized planet. Since 2000, more than half the world's population live in our cities, and by 2025, which is just around the corner, that will be 2/3 of the population. So this will be the habitat for us living in the future, dealing with issues of urbanization and urban sprawl, and all the things we've talked about, dealing with climate change, dealing with how hot the cities get in the summer, with air quality, with water quality. Landscape architects are part of the team trying to address those issues. Because if you look at the city, if you look at the open space in the cities, if you look at the public realm in the cities, this is the area where landscape architects work, working alongside the other professions, the engineers, the architects, trying to make sure that that public realm, those open spaces, address the need of an ever-growing urban population, that they understand issues like the hydrology and the soils and things like that, that make those open spaces so important. So really, we're primarily concerned with the green living fabric of the city, as shown here in this image by Ove Arab. That is where landscape architects contribute to the shape of cities in the future. So that's the profession. We also deal with the rural landscape as well. So it's not just cities, the design landscapes. Here we see Killarney National Park, and also the everyday, the degraded landscapes. They may not be beautiful to look at, but they're important for people. So moving on to the curriculum, if you come to UCD, what you'll study. This slide shows you the design studio is absolutely at the core, the centre of landscape architecture education. The images on the left-hand side show students working in the design studio. And then we have these other subjects that feed into design, things like applied sciences. We've got pictures there of students potting up plants at the Environmental Science Centre at Rosemount, or construction, students out measuring and looking at steps in the landscape. So these technological subjects, these formal subjects, feed into the design studio. Here's a picture of our studio resources on the UCD campus with students working there, working individually, working in groups. And really, within the studio, within the courses in the studio, you learn by doing. We use computers, but we also do a lot of hand drawing and model making. This is really learning by doing, understanding shapes and manipulation of shapes by doing. And the design studio, I suppose, is a different sort of education experience to many that you'd be sort of used to. It's at the core of our education, and it's a very engaged process. It's not a passive process. So you're engaging with others as you work in the studio. It's an environment where students feel comfortable to work, to reflect, to present their work, and to sometimes make mistakes and go back and start again. So it's a place for reflection and exchange, that's student to student, but also staff to student and student to staff. So it's a very interactive place. It's an informal contact point between staff and students, and at least half the curriculum in our undergraduate program is based around the studio. So it's a collaborative workspace. Of course, we also get outdoors into the landscape as well. So here are first year students out in the landscape, out in Lough Bora, in the centre of Ireland, experiencing cutaway bog and new afforestation. There are some examples from a first year field trip where we go around Ireland looking at woodlands, looking at archaeological sites, looking at art in the landscape, and generally having a bonding exercise in first year. Typically, and pre the pandemic, we have a second year field trip where we go to a European capital to see how other countries are addressing similar challenges and what urbanisation patterns are like there. And the one other reason for UCD is such an attractive place to study landscape architecture is our great campus. The campus itself gives great examples to learn about plants, to see how plants are used, as well as being a really pleasant place to spend time in. But we also have great facilities there. The picture here shows students looking at different growing media for plants in Rosemount, the environmental science laboratory there. At the bottom, you can see students in our building workshop that is actually attached to our school, experimenting with different construction techniques for a particular design challenge they're facing. We also have very good international cooperation. So listed in this slide here are some of the universities that we have Erasmus exchanges with. This is where students typically in the third year of their studies might spend part of that year abroad. We've got staff at the moment over in Germany teaching. So you can see some of the European destinations there, France, Germany and Switzerland. We also have international exchanges with Australia, America and Hong Kong indeed at the moment. And we also deal with some projects. So students get a great chance to understand Ireland, but also to work abroad. We also have very good links with the profession in landscape architecture. The first thing to say is that many of the teaching staff in studio are practitioners with their own design practices outside and come in typically half a day a week to help students in their design projects, and that keeps the course at UCD very connected to what's happening in the profession outside. And we've also introduced recently an internship for part of our third year. This is where students go out and work with the design practices. And this slide here shows on the left-hand side a student that went to work with ACOM, a large international company where he was working at very much the global scale. The right-hand side, a student went to work in a different sort of project, more the domestic scale, where they were getting right down to the details of what plants to put in what place in a business park and office garden. So different sorts of external experience being brought into the teaching at UCD. And typically the students come back from their time abroad and talk to the others about their work. So here we have posters from one student on the left-hand side who went and worked for 6 months in Brussels in a design practice there. And on the right-hand side, a student who went to Virginia Tech in the States and actually studied there. So in the third year of the studies, there's definitely a chance to branch out, to travel, and to bring those experiences back to the final year, which is the thesis year. So here is just some information on the entry requirements, the points for 2021 this year, and what the matriculation requirements are. We normally have a student talking a little bit about the programme as well. I don't have a student with me this year, but they did ask me to point out to any prospective students there's a very good social life. When you spend a lot of time working in studio, you make friends for life in that environment and associate celebrations. So finally, really, is landscape architecture for you? If you're interested in design, if you're interested in our surroundings, if you're interested in the impact we have on the planet and how we could perhaps try and mitigate that, if you care about people and you care about place, maybe you should think about landscape architecture as a career. Thank you.
Thank you to Dr. Karen Foley for that insightful talk. I hope it gave you great insights into our landscape architecture course here in UCD. If you do have questions, please head over to our virtual landscape architecture stand, where we have staff and students who are ready to chat with you and answer your questions. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a good day.